Hello friends, welcome back. This is Eric, KJ4YZI with HamRadioConcepts. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Now, we're going to take a look at an antenna, or a couple of antennas here, in one video. And this is going to be an update to something that I've made a video on before. You probably have heard of the MFJ Cobweb antenna. Maybe you own one. Maybe you watched my previous video about a year and a half, 2 years ago, and it made you buy one and you were excited with the performance. I was, okay? So that was the MFJ-1835 5-band Cobweb antenna I first made a video on. That was 10 meters, 12, 15, 17, and 20 meters. Horizontally polarized. Great for people that don't have the space to put up a full-size dipole or a high vertical at 35 feet, and they want to get on HF with a multiple band antenna with good performance. Well, that was the MFJ-1835. But then I went to Orlando Hamcation this year because I don't have my Cobweb anymore after the hurricane. I went to MFJ at the Orlando Hamcation and I decided to pick up their new Cobweb. Now first, this is the MFJ-1836, and this is the high power version. Remember, the Cobweb came out with two different, a 300 watt and a 1500 watt power limit. So this is the now 6-band Cobweb. It adds 6 meters. So for me, I'm a 6-meter junkie sometimes in the summer. This is going to be great when my high gain vertical doesn't do well on 6 vertically polarized. I do have my 6-meter 4-element Yagi, but I also have a 6-meter horizontal loop now on top of the other bands. So 6, 10, 12, 15, 17, 20. That's great. But let's go a little further now. So when I made the video of the last Cobweb, everybody was asking, Eric, does it do 40? Why doesn't it do 40? Can we add 40 meters? Why not 40 on there? Well, MFJ listened. They saw the response. Now, I already took this out, but I'm going to show you what it is. This is the MFJ 30 and 40 meter add-on kit for your original MFJ 1835 Cobweb or the new 6-band. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you what's in this kit, but I'm also going to put together the new 6-band. And then I'm going to add the 30 and 40 on it. Now I will have an 8-band Cobweb antenna. A lot of people in the past, when I made the video in the past, I did say I was going to compare it with my high gain vertical, which I don't think was an adequate comparison because it was only 5 bands versus 9 bands. So now with something like this, I'll have 8 bands, everything except 80 meters on my vertical. Everything except 80 on here, but it'll be a little more of a fair comparison. Should you put up a vertical or should you stick with the Cobweb? We'll check that out. Myself, I'm thinking I'm going to keep my vertical and I'm going to use this also, and I'll be able to switch back and forth. When vertical's not doing it, maybe horizontal will bring in those signals. Great for space restricted area. So we're going to set this up today. This one will probably take a little longer to set up than the 1835 video I did. Then I'm going to test it out, check it out. Then I'm going to put the 30-40 add-on kit. We'll check it out again. And in a second video further down the road or next couple weeks, I'll put it up, we'll check it out, and we'll see the performance of this thing on HF. So let's check out the MFJ 1836 and the MFJ, 1835 HK34. It's a lot to remember all these model numbers, Let's get into it. All right, so in the 30-40 meter add-on kit, what you'll get is, because you need to add length, you're going to get 4 of these spreaders that are smaller in diameter than the spreaders in the MFJ Cobweb itself. The spreaders in the Cobweb will look more like this, and then these here on one side is going to go into the end of the main spreaders in the Cobweb and extend and give you holes for 2 more wires. Here's the wires here. All right. This is looks like 30 meters and 40 meters. These are heavy duty wire because this is the heavy duty kit for running more power. You will get a parts pack in here to add the additional stuff. And this here, now this, what this is for, is, it says in the manual, is you're going to take out 3 of the screws on the top of the mounting plate on the Cobweb, And you're going to put this on, and that's going to be where your parts and rope attach, because now it's going to add sort of like guys on the top of it from keeping it from sagging too much, because it is going to be quite a bit longer and quite a bit more weight on the end of the cobweb. So that's going to keep the end supported up with the rope and the bracket here. Here are your insulators at the end, and of course this train always wants to come through when I'm making a video, so if the train's loud, excuse me. So these insulators here are going to be on the end of the cobweb, and that's where you're going to tune the open end of the horizontal loops. You're going to tune here, and tuning I'll show you later. So I wonder if the manual's in here. Yes, it is. Alright, so here's the manual, right? And if you look at this picture, feed points over here, all the loops, the wires, they're fed here, and they're open on this side. Right? They're all open here. So this is where your opens are, and that's where you're going to tune it for the minimum SWR and portion of the band that you want. So other than that, we're going to get started. I'm going to do this the same way I did my first video. I'm going to set up a tripod over here, and I'll break out the cobweb, and we'll start putting it together almost like a rotating clothesline and get that thing set up. Maybe I'll get my son-in-law to come help me today, and maybe he will be over here either holding the camera or handing me parts. And here is the cobweb. So you have your 4 spreaders there. 4 spreaders and a little pipe that goes with the matchbox on it. Your mounting plate, bracket for the mounting plate there. Your parts pack, your wires, and your manual, alright, and the insulators here. So we're going to put this together, and a lot of people always, they ask, where did you get the tripod? It's just a regular tripod. I got it from MFJ, but this thing has done more for helping me assemble stuff than it has to be a antenna mount, you know. This thing always comes in handy, this MFJ tripod. So I'm going to put the cobweb up here. I think this is the easiest way to do it, is to, if you don't have a tripod, get a pipe up here and put the thing up here and start assembling it at, you know, eye level or little, you know, face level. That'll make it a lot easier setting this thing up. Okay, so here's where I'm at so far. I have base plate here, both halves loosely put together with the feeder tube attached to the matching box. Now, I don't know if it's a misprint or not, but in the manual it does say, you see, you have your, okay, on the matching box, here's where your wires are going to connect. Note that the screen is facing down when you have this thing assembled for the vent so the water doesn't get in there. But you see I have 1 on the top and 2 on the bottom. Manual says there should be 2 that go up into here, but I don't know where that's at. So I stuck the 1 on here, and it's different for the low power versus the high power. So on the high power it says you got 2 screws, they face a certain way. This is how I put it on there. I zip tied it with the included zip ties with the ferrets here. So it should be just fine there. I think that might be a typo in the manual. I also have 4 of the spreader tubes ready to go with the wires. I got the, you know, the screws, the washers, and the nuts on each one. So far, I have all my parts. I haven't been missing screws yet, so it does. So far, they did a good job counting out the screws and nuts. So when you put these spreaders in here, it's a good idea, like it says in the manual, have this loose. Okay, you can see I don't even have it tight yet, because you got to get these spreaders in. You don't want to loosen this and try to take this whole plate off and do it. You want to keep that with that feed tube in there, and just loosen this enough to get the 4 spreaders in there, you know, like this. And now I could start tightening it down, turning it, and getting the antenna elements on there. Okay, so I just realized something. As of right now, this is a identical 5-band MFJ-1835 because 6 meters is not mounted on it yet, right? 10, 12, 15, 17, 20 meter element. I'm thinking, where the hell does 6 meters go? And then I looked in the manual here. Check this out. Didn't even realize this. is it? Okay, look how 6 meters is. Right? 6 meters doesn't go all the way around. It's corner fed, and you utilize, I was wondering what the hose clamps were for. They got holes in the hose clamps, worm clamps, whatever you want to call them, and basically those are going to go on the spreaders, and I'm going to loop the wire around, trim the ends for a minimum SWR. Now the manual says don't be concerned about the sag, and it's a good thing because the sag will help you from busting these lines in high wind and when stuff stretches and everything else, So it seems that with this matchbox on this version, that it's a little bit more friendly right here on the matchbox part. Let me see if I can get over here. All right, these lines are doing a great job coming out of here without bunching up and being a problem like they were on the other Cobweb. They were over here and a lot of them were bent on the corner, so that seems to be doing good. Now, like I said, don't worry too much about the sagging. And when you have this on here and you pull it around like this, get the 1, get the 2 done, now you have the lines here on the end, okay? And what I'm going to show you next is when we use the insulators to tie these two together, I can get these to where they're not sagging too much. Tighten them up like this, all right? But with enough sag to where it has a little bit of free play. But I think the last version had ring terminals on here, and you'd get them on here and it'd be like this on the end. Now I can get these wrapped around a screw like this, get them to where they have enough slack but they're a little bit taut, and then I can clip off the ends to tune it on the insulators. I'll show you that in a second. But so far it's coming along great. I like my Lazy Susan again. I can get one here, one here, so you can just fling it around like this. Put a wire on, fling it around. So this is how the 6 meter anchor points for the wire go, okay? And it's got 4 hose clamps, worm gears, with a hole punched in it. And you put the screw in it like this, and you put one of these kep nuts on here like this. Alright? Whoops. Alright. So you got that on like this. Then you take 2 of the washers, put the washers on like this, and then you put the nylon nut like this. Now you're going to put this, here's where you're going to loop the wire through right here, like this. Let me get under here like this. Okay. So here is one of them right here, you see? I'm not sure why they decided not to put the holes drilled for this. I'm not sure. But, so important that you measure 6 inches from here to here, mark a line. That's where this is going. And then you're going to mark 22 inches from here to here. 22 inches. So now the wire is going to come from the matchbox around here. Then it goes down here and it's going to anchor onto this one, and you're going to have wire left over which you're going to trim off. And that's how you trim it on both sides. Take a look here at what I got going so far. So here's the insulating, end for the wires. Now, you could use, what you're going to want to do is to keep the feed point right, feed point impedance, you're going to want to make this identical on both sides, okay? You don't want an inch on this side and 5 inches on this side, because it won't be a 50 ohm, it'll mess the feed point impedance up. So right here I have 20, 17, 15, 12, and 10. They're a little wobbly, they're heavy because of this, so I'm going to tighten these up just a little bit, make them a little bit taut. But what I'm going to do is, once I get the 6 on and I put it on the analyzer, I'm going to see how it works just like this first. And I'm going to see where it is. If it's way off, then I'll start trimming. But what you'll do is you'll trim the wires evenly on both sides to get the SWR flat where you want it. And then at that point, you can wrap the wire, around here, so it's not hanging like this. But that's where you're going to trim it. I like this method better than the previous Cobweb that I made a video on, because like I said, it had ring terminals and it was a little bit difficult to get it right. I can pull this snug tight around this washer here, around this bolt, trim it up, you know, and do what I need to do. So let me get the 6 on first, and then we're going to put it on the analyzer and see what it looks like. All the bands, the dip in SWR is under the band, you know, below the ham portion. The 20 meters is actually 3.76. If I go up to 17 meters here, you'll see. The 17 meters, the dip is at 17.2. So it's definitely long. So what I'm going to do is start trimming all these to get that right where I need it, up here in the 18 point, like right there. It's 20 to 1 or 20.6 to 1. So I'm going to tune that and get that, you know, where it needs to be for 17, 10, 12, 6, and 15, and 20. All right, I started nipping off on 17 meters. 1.2 to 1, lower end of the band, right about almost the digital portion, 1.2 to 1. So you see, I did take off quite a bit on that. Now, do not look at this and assume this is what it needs to look like, because your installation may vary. But you can see how much I had on here with 15 and the other ones, right? And look, I nipped off quite a bit on each side. So now what I'm going to do is loosen these and pull this taut, get that nice and tight, and then make sure after I do all that I'll fine tune one more time. But see, better longer first, measure twice, cut once. If you cut too much, you can solder on a piece of wire, crimp on, whatever. You can add wire to this. And what MFJ recommends in the manual is, you see this here? When you're done tuning, you want to solder or torch the end of that, solder it, get it just a solid wire on the end, because you can have arcing and corona discharge and all that stuff. Corona, you know, sparking at high power. If you're running 1500 watts, it could arc on that. So you want to make sure once you're done tuning to you know, solder those on the end. Check it out, I got 20 tuned 14.154, 1.0 to 1, just about 50 ohms, 51 ohms. That's amazing. All right, so all 5 of these are tuned up pretty well. All 5 of them are not hanging there like a bunch of wire. Over here on the 6 meter, you don't want to, keep an eye on where these are. You don't want to wrap them back around the hose clamps there. That'll throw the tuning off. Now, in the next part of this video is going to be adding the 30-40 meter kit. I'm also going to post that as a separate video for those who already know about this. They just want to see the 30-40 kit. If you're new to the Cobweb, this is a complete video. If you're just wanting to see the kit, that's this next part of this video. But now I'm going to take this out and I'm going to add the 30 and 40 kit down here. I'm going to probably have to take off the ends here and add 30 and 40, which will also be uploaded as a separate video, so that if you're only interested in the 30-40 upgrade kit, you don't have to watch this entire video. But if you're interested in making this an 8-band Cobweb right off the bat, here's the first part, and then we're going to go ahead and do the 30 and 40 add-on kit now. Holy cow, I put 2 of the additional spreaders on here to extend the length. Look how long this thing is going to be now, how wide for 30 and 40. Let's see if I can back up a little bit. Alright, so you see why it needs those additional support guys, because with all 4 of those on the wire, it's going to sag pretty good. So there is 2 of the 4, and then on here, if I can get underneath here, this is what happens here. This little U-bolt here, that's where the rope, that's the support mast for the rope that's going to hold the end up. Okay, so I had no idea this thing was going to become this big. If you take a look up here, so up on the top here, you can see the mast, the support mast up top with the ropes that I had to tie. The ropes come down to each of the brackets up here to keep it from sagging, keeps it up. So 30 meter, 40 meter wire. And what happens, I mean, this thing is huge. This thing is, it's huge. It's not uncomfortably huge. It's really big though. I got to figure out where I'm going to put it in my backyard now. So this wire right here, the 30 and the 40, this right here had the same principle as what you saw on the other wires. What happens though is this add-on kit, the 30 and 40 meter wires weren't cut, so you had to string them around, and then you take this, you know, it was all one piece. I brought it here, I cut it dead center, lined this insulator up here, and the same thing, I made the tails here. Now I already trimmed the 30 meter wire here. This I got trimmed for 1.1 at 10.138, right around PSK, FT8 and all that. So that one's done. So this one here, 40, is extremely long, and they have it like that on purpose. The 40 meter wire, 30 meter wire are cut long so that you can stretch it around, then you can trim it for frequency. So I'm going to see on the analyzer right now what I have, and probably more or less all of this is going to come off. It'll probably be taking that much off. And again, keep each leg of these, keep them identical. When I was doing the 30, I had one side half an inch longer than the other, and the impedance went to 63 ohms. I wanted 50 ohms, so I want it to be even on both sides. So that's exactly center fed, not off center fed. A little bit won't hurt. If it's 55, 60, it's not a big deal. But if you're going to do it this way. All right, so here is 30 meters, about a 1.2, 1.3. Thing is that you want to make sure, you want to remember is you can't, this is not high enough off the ground to be tuning this effectively. It needs to be at least 10 feet or higher off the ground to tune this. But I can get a ballpark here and see that I got it 50 ohm, 1.2. Right now it's about 10.110, a little bit short, or a little bit long rather, but it'll be fine. CW and data portion, it should be just fine. If I go to 40 meters, here's 40 meters here. Way off, over 31 to 1 SWR. Actually, the flat spot is right there around 6.8. So I'm going to trim off a bunch of this and get it where I need it.
There with it. Over. Okay, really good. Well, I would, appreciate that very much. And thank you so much for the contact. Over. No problem. I appreciate it too. Congress saying that the HOAs can't tell you you can't have an outdoor antenna. You just have to work with the HOA for you to come upon an agreement that will make it look aesthetically nice and not be too detrimental to the neighbors. No, it doesn't, but I think that's going to change real soon. Over. Oh, you're going to switch, huh? Well, we'll see. Anyway, won't go into that. And I know exactly where Janesville, Wisconsin is. You're on Route 12, probably just between the Wisconsin border and, oh heck, what was the name? Harvard, Illinois. Over.
Second to Ham Radio Big Time. My main rig is a Kenwood TS990, but right now I'm using a rig that I bought to use my RV. It's a T991 Alpha. It's a relatively small all-band radio, all-mode, all-band radio. Back to you, Whit, W5FUL from K2GAB.
All right, so the Cobweb, we got it moved in the backyard. I'm gonna leave it here for a couple days, temporary on the tripod, to see what goes on. Now, I got it right next to my vertical here, my AV680 vertical. And I'm going to do a comparison soon. What I have to do is hook up a switch, get another coax out here, and swap back and forth from 40 on this thing versus 40 on the high gain. Now, from what I just heard on the radio, this thing on 40 is just cranking S9 plus 20 received signals. I would say that this is probably not a portable antenna. Okay, I did take my other Cobweb on the field day video, Vero Beach field day. I set up the 5-band Cobweb portable at field day on the beach, but I wouldn't attempt that with this. There's a lot of supports. I mean, unless you had a 3-day event and you had a half a day to take it apart and set it up, you wouldn't need a half a day if you already had it set up once. But as long as you have enough room and you have ambition, you can do whatever you want. I wouldn't call this a QRP portable antenna. I'd call this a nice base station antenna, base mounted antenna that you can keep at home. That's got a lot of band coverage, no tuner needed, and will be a lot easier to pull down than this high gain vertical. So my tripod's going to hold this up for a couple days. We'll see what happens, and I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching, and more videos on the way. 7-3 from KJ4YZI.